Hello and welcome to the Virtuous Life. I'm your host, Pat Odie Murray. And certainly in the month of January, we in the Catholic Church are very aware of the January 22nd decision of Roe v. Wade. We still do our March for Life, even though the Dobbs decision overturned that because it moved it back to the states. So the fight is not over. However, I came across a book that was sent to me called Abortion Pill Reversal. And we know that so much of the abortion industry has moved toward chemical abortions, and we'll talk about that in the show. But I feel so blessed to have with me today the writer of this book, but also kind of the founder of all of this information, and we'll get into that. But it is Dr. George Delgado. He actually founded the Abortion Pill Reversal Network in 2012. He's the author and co-author of 3 articles in the peer-reviewed literature on mifepristone and the abortion pill reversal, which a lot of times you'll hear us call APR during this interview. He received his medical degree from the University of California and completed his residency at UCLA Santa Monica Medical Center. Welcome, Dr. Delgado, to the show. So wonderful to have you.
It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, well, I finished this book. I just have so many questions. So let's kind of roll into them, okay? First of all, help our audience understand what brought you into this issue of the abortion pill reversal to come up with this idea. And then also, you can explain maybe to our audience as you talk about this, how the abortion pill works. They need to know that in order to understand what you've done. So kind of take us into that, Doctor.
Sure. So first of all, this movement that we call APR, abortion pill reversal, really started from the grassroots from 2 physicians who got the same idea, Dr. Matthew Harrison and myself. At different times, thousands of miles away, 2 different women called and asked us for help in order to stop their chemical abortions. That's really how it all got started. And the way that mifepristone works, mifepristone being the abortion pill, is that it blocks the effects of progesterone. Progesterone is the critical hormone for the maintenance of pregnancy. That's why it's called progesterone, progestational steroid kinone. It's an acronym. And it's been known for many, many years that women who have very low progesterone levels will unfortunately have miscarriage upon miscarriage upon miscarriage because they need that progesterone to maintain the pregnancy. A couple of very important things that progesterone does before we talk about what mifepristone does. Yeah. Progesterone causes the placenta to be very well adhered to the wall of the uterus. I call it the super glue of the placenta. And that placenta has to be very well adhered so the baby in the womb can get nutrition, can get oxygen, and can get water from the mother and can discharge its waste. So it's critically important that there be sufficient progesterone levels. The other thing that progesterone does is that it causes the uterus to be nice and soft and stretched because the uterus starts out about the size of the fist of your hand. But of course, it has to stretch and grow to accommodate the baby before delivery about the size of a small watermelon. So we can't have the uterus contracting during the pregnancy. It has to be nice and soft, supple, and pliant. And the progesterone does that. It keeps the uterine muscle very well relaxed. So what happens when you take mifepristone, the abortion pill? Well, what it does is it blocks the effects of progesterone, kind of like if you can imagine the progesterone being a key that fits into a lock, turns the lock, and opens the door opening what we call the hormone effects that I just described. Mm-hmm. All of us have had the very frustrating experience of putting a key that fit very well into a lock but didn't turn the lock, right? That's a false key. That's exactly what mifepristone does. It goes onto the receptor but blocks the receptor, not activating it, so you don't get the good effects of the progesterone. What happens then? The placenta starts to detach from the wall of the uterus. The analogy would be that the superglue dissolves, and once the placenta detaches, then the lifeline of the preborn is cut off. The preborn no longer will get the fluid, the nutrition, the oxygen from the mother. the preborn baby then will die.
Wow. So what you developed then is something that involves kind of flooding the system, right, with progesterone, and then how does that affect the mifepristone then?
Yeah, that's a great question. So fortunately, that false key that goes into that lock doesn't stay there forever. The key goes in and out. It's a dynamic situation. And so what we decided to do is to increase progesterone levels by giving supplemental progesterone. So then, in essence, there are good guy keys. The progesterone keys are lined up in front of those locks so that the second a bad false key mifepristone comes off the lock, then the progesterone key can go right on there, activate that receptor, and keep the placenta well adhered. So we, in essence, what we do is we outcompete the mifepristone on a molecular level until the mifepristone washes out of the system. And then we continue to give progesterone for a time longer to allow for healing of the whole system, because not only does the mifepristone act on the placenta, it also acts in the ovary, when the ovary at that time early in the pregnancy is producing progesterone. So that's our strategy, and that strategy has worked, and it's been shown that abortion pill reversal is safe and it's effective, and women who get the second chance at choice are extremely, extremely grateful.
I think one of the things that becomes very apparent in this book, and I've worked in our diocese with NAPRO technology, with getting practitioners trained in that area, and I myself was just amazed at how many obstetricians and gynecologists are just not aware of NAPRO technology and what it can do. And I guess I'm going to step out just a little bit, Doctor, from what we're talking about, but it certainly has to do with it. What is it? Because you, in your reversal procedure, you know, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists haven't jumped on this and said, what a wonderful idea. So what's the problem in training of gynecologists and obstetrics that they don't understand this physiology?
Well, see, the problem with regards to abortion pill reversal is that the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecology is an self-avowed abortion promotion organization. They say that right there on their website. Oh. And so they're part of what I call in my book the medical abortion complex. We have ACOG, we have Planned Parenthood, we have American Medical Association. And the ACOG has never polled its membership about abortion. It's been a top-down thing. Their leadership essentially has been infiltrated by people who are very much invested in the pro-abortion ideology. And so therefore, they are against abortion pill reversal. And you might ask, well, why would be, if they're supposedly pro-choice, why would they be against a second chance at choice? Well, I think a quote from Dr. Daniel Grossman, who has been a vociferous critic of us over the years. Dr. Grossman is at UCSF and is an abortion researcher, and he's also with the Bixby Foundation, which essentially exports abortion ideology around the world. And he was quoted on a liberal platform called Slate, and he was asked about abortion pill reversal, and the quote goes something like this, and it's in the book word for word, but he said something to the extent that, well, if a woman in this situation is given progesterone under medical supervision, I think it would be safe. So there he's acknowledging that what we're doing is safe because we provide very good medical supervision. But then he goes on to say, however, I don't want this advertised because it might change the perspective of women and they might feel that abortion regret is more common than it really is. So bingo, that really set off the light in my head that the reason why they're so against APR and the reason why ACOG and others are against us is because they know that if you know that some women change their minds after starting their chemical abortions and seek reversal, that blows a huge hole in their narrative that abortion is a great good for all women. Because if it were such a great good, why would some women change their minds and have abortion regret? So I think that's why they are so much against this, because they are really tied so much to abortion, ideologically, either because of income or because maybe they've been involved in abortion themselves in the past, or because they've staked their academic careers on promoting abortion.
So the statistics of, because it certainly appears, Doctor, that we are moving from the surgical abortion model to the chemical abortion model, the RU 486. What are statistics showing us here?
Yes, so the statistics are estimates at this point because the best statistics usually come from the Guttmacher Institute, which is the research arm of Planned Parenthood. The last numbers that they have released, at least when I checked about a month ago, were from 2023. They had not yet released 2024 and certainly not 2025. So they're behind. And I think they're behind because of the huge growth and proliferation of online and telehealth procurement of the abortion pill. But our estimates right now are that 70% of all abortions in the U.S. are chemical abortions. And we think those numbers are pretty good based on other surveys. Mm-hmm. And that goes along with the increase we've been seeing in the last several years. In some European countries, such as Scotland, 90% of all the abortions are chemical abortions. So this is where it's going. And this is why it's so important, I think, to know that I feel that that APR really is the new tip of the spear of the pro-life movement, because this is where the action is. This is where women are going to get their abortions, and we need to be there ready for those who do change their minds to give them a second chance of choice. It's important to know that we propose, but we never impose, but these women are asking for help, just like the very first two women who reached out to us when we had no idea what could be done, but they asked. And so that's why abortion pill reversal is developed, because women are asking for help. They want that second chance at choice.
Well, Dr. Delgado, is part of the reason you came to this understanding of how to reverse the abortion pill was because of your training with Dr. Hilgers in that whole NAPRO technology? Was that one of the things that helped you understand?
It did, because my training with NAPRO technology through Dr. Hilger's program really gave me a really good understanding of how progesterone works, and more importantly, of how to use progesterone in pregnancy. So I had many years of experience of treating women who had what in a situation is called threatened miscarriages, where they were cramping and spotting early in pregnancy, and if their progesterone levels were low, we could give them supplemental progesterone, raise those levels back to normal, and save their babies. And so it was that knowledge that I had, coupled with the knowledge I had about how mifepristone worked. I had, even before it was called mifepristone, when it was known as RU46, I had an interest in it for some reason. It was just a curiosity, and so I read a lot about it, even before it was approved in the U.S. in the year 2000. So it was at that time when I got that first call from the woman seeking reversal that I think the Holy Spirit put two and two together in my mind, this knowledge of how mifepristone works by blocking progesterone receptors and the knowledge of using progesterone in pregnancy. So I reasoned that although these women might have normal progesterone levels, their progesterone levels were being blocked, and so they were as if they had lower levels. Mm-hmm. And so I figured that if we gave supplemental progesterone, we could outcompete the mifepristone like I described earlier.
Right.
And that's where I got the idea, and I came up with my first protocol to treat these women who were seeking reversal.
So, Doctor, in the book you talk about the three pillars of evidence that support abortion pill reversal, because obviously that's one of the first things critics are going to say, well, it's just not safe to give them this much progesterone. So you've got to have some research backing up what you're doing, right? So you talk about these three pillars. Can you describe those for our audience?
Sure. So the first pillar is what we call biologic logic, and that means that we know that mifepristone is what we call a competitive antagonist that competes with the progesterone. And we know that in biochemistry, whenever you have a competition between two molecules, if you raise the concentration of one of them, it's going to win the battle. And so that's been proven. It's been shown with progesterone itself. In fact, with mifepristone itself. In fact, in my book, I go over a study that was done with cells that were taken from placentas and then cultured, and they added mifepristone, and the mifepristone turned off the production of hormones by those placental cells. Then when progesterone was added in, the hormones produced by those cells again began. And so it showed that the progesterone reversed the effects of the mifepristone on those cells. The next pillar is animal research. The very, very early research done when mifepristone was being approved, there was research on rats. And it showed that if a group of pregnant rats was given mifepristone by itself, all the pups would be aborted. If those rats were given mifepristone and progesterone, very few of them would abort, showing that the progesterone was blocking the effects of the mifepristone.
Okay.
And then Dr. Stephen Samut at Franciscan University, who's a collaborator of mine, he did very elegant animal studies where instead of giving the progesterone and the mifepristone at the same time, he gave the mifepristone first and then the progesterone later, just like happens in humans.
Right.
And his studies showed that the rats who got mifepristone that were pregnant stopped gaining weight normally, and they started having blood in the vagina, showing that the abortions were actually starting. And then when they got the progesterone, they started gaining weight again and gained weight normally, and the bleeding stopped. So that showed very, very conclusively that indeed we are reversing the process. We're not just blocking it, we're reversing the process.
Wow.
And then the last big set of animal studies was actually in the FDA approval packet for mifepristone itself when we were researching that. And we saw that they did studies with rabbits, again, showing that the progesterone blocked the effects of the mifepristone. And the FDA was actually quite prescient in the comment they made in that package insert, where the FDA scientists said that giving progesterone could block the effects of mifepristone and lead to continuing pregnancies. That's exactly describing what we're doing with APR. So they were quite predictive way back then. Then the third pillar is our human experience. So first of all, just the experience where we know that more than 7,000 babies have been documented to have had, to be born after successful abortion pill reversal. So more than 7,000 babies who are alive, they do not lie about what's happened. But we also have had some very good research studies. We've published a lot of them, and Dr. Joe Turner in Australia has also published some. And we've had now two large studies, one in 2018 that showed that the progesterone was successful at reversing the effects of the mifepristone and very safe. And then a study that just has been approved and will be published in the Lineker Quarterly coming up this year. And that one where we looked at 756 women who underwent abortion pill reversal, and we tracked them and saw that the safety was very, very good, and it was very, very effective in all comers in this group. 55% success rate in reversing the chemical abortion pill mifepristone. And that compares very well with the data we have if a woman takes mifepristone only and does nothing else, just sits on her hands. The best she can expect is 25% of her the babies will survive. So
so you at least double it.
That with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
exactly.
is that pretty much the overall stat that you're seeing since you've started this, around 55% or 60%? What are you kind of seeing as you look at it all?
Well, in our first study in 2018, we had a subgroup of patients who got higher doses of progesterone, and with those, the success rate was 68%. So what I'm saying is that the range is anywhere from 55 to 68%, and we think that with higher doses we'll get better success, and we will be studying that in future research.
And I would suspect that people that are opposed to this, that want to support abortion and push that, like you said, they don't want abortion regret out there. I would suspect that they're trying to make a case that, too much progesterone is harmful to women or to the developing baby. Is that a part of their case or no?
They're not making that case specifically, and that's because they know that progesterone has been used very safely in pregnancy for 60 years at doses higher than we're using in France. In the past, they used very high doses. So, and we're only giving it, the high doses for several days. And then, so there are really no safety concerns with that. What they're trying to do, though, is they're taking a study done by Dr. Mitchell Crennan, a few years ago now, who did what's called a randomized controlled trial, where he had women coming to an abortion center, asked them if they wanted to, instead of having a surgical abortion, to take mifepristone, but then wait, and half of them would get placebo, a sugar pill, and then half of them would get progesterone, and then to see how they did. And this was a head-to-head matchup, and he designed this ostensibly to disprove the success of abortion pill reversal. Well, in that study, they stopped the study very early after only 12 patients enrolled, because 3 of the patients had bleeding and called ambulances. Now, one of those patients had gotten progesterone, was in what I would call the APR group. However, when she got to the emergency department, the records show that it says no further treatment was necessary. So she really didn't need to be in the emergency department. She just panicked, which is okay. But that's no reason to stop the study. Then the other 2, however, were in the placebo group. They got mifepristone but did not get progesterones.
Okay.
Now, both of them needed emergency surgical abortions, and one of them needed blood transfusions. So and Dr. Cronin stopped the study after that. So what he and others have said in different interviews after that is that, well, abortion pill reversal is not safe because, look, we had to stop the study because of bleeding. However, they fail to mention, and you only get it if you read the study or if you read my book, Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice, that the only 2 that really required stopping the study were in the placebo group. They did not get progesterone, and the one that got progesterone didn't really need to be in the emergency department. So this is a false narrative, a false interpretation of the data, and even outright lies, using this to say that abortion pill reversal is not safe and that we're putting women at risk. Not so, not so. And our new study, our 2026 study, shows that the bleeding was in the group that got progesterone, which is the people we studied, was only 0.3% women who had bleeding greater than a regular period. And there are no need for blood transfusions, no need for antibiotics. And there were, of course, no deaths among the mothers. So our data show that this is very, very safe. This is over 750 women who went through abortion pill reversal. So I think this is a great answer to these false claims that abortion pill reversal is not safe.
No kidding. I mean, in fact, when you read this study that you're talking about, I would suspect it would just reinforce the dangers of RU486, if you really think about it, right?
Yes, if anything, it shows exactly the dangers of taking mifepristone and not doing anything else. Exactly.
Yeah. Man, oh man, because I remember when RU486 was released in Europe, and I remember that was one of the things they talked about was, hemorrhaging and, all these things, and it just amazed me that it was approved. So, and I do want to talk a little bit more about that in the second half. I want to give us a little more time with that. But as we've got about 4 minutes left in the first half of the show, Doctor. So can you kind of let us know what kind of resistance you've been facing with APR? Because like you said, this is a choice thing. This isn't you're forcing this on people.
Right. Yeah. We're proposing, we're not imposing. And in my book, Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice, I have a chapter called David and Goliath, which shows the great opposition that we've received from the medical abortion complex that I had described earlier. All of these people who are very indebted to the abortion industry and how big the abortion industry is. And I go through some calculations there where I calculate how much money comes into Planned Parenthood and how much money comes from government sources. And of course, that's been suspended since then. Thanks be to God for 1 year, and hopefully that'll be made permanent.
Yeah.
But at every turn, once they heard about us, they knew about us, they've been attacking us at every turn, attacking the credibility of our research, stating that women rarely, if ever, change their minds. But actually, some studies by Dr. Cronin himself show that women do change their minds. For example, one done in the UK, there were about 100 women who had unsuccessful abortions, and this was after taking both abortion pills, not just mifepristone, but the second one. And 10% of those decided to continue with their pregnancies. So that's not an insignificant number. They were faced with the concrete reality of still being pregnant and they decide to continue. And so I think they're lying and or they're misinterpreting the data when they say abortion regret is rare or never occurs. And that's one of their reasons for saying we shouldn't support abortion pill reversal. They say it's not needed, but not true. And again, over 7,000 babies alive do not lie. Their mothers did have abortion regret, did want a second chance at choice. So if you are pro-choice, why would you be against a second chance at choice when this is effective and it's safe? And I also have a chapter in the book called Would You Ban CPR, which compares APR with CPR. And I think that's a very, very poignant comparison because CPR was never approved with a double-blind randomized controlled trial. And that would be a trial where if someone went down with a heart attack, you would look on the list and say, okay, he's randomized to not get any CPR, so we're just going to see if his heart restarts on its own.
Yeah.
And then the other guy, oh, he's on the list, so let's do CPR. No, that would be unethical. And that's why it would be unethical to do a study where you have a placebo group, and we would never do that, where we don't give a woman any treatment. But we have other ways to, and high levels of scientific research where we can provide more information on this, and we will as time goes on.
One of the things, too, as we kind of close out our first segment here of the show, is that I think for women who do APR and still lose the child, that at least they have a sense that they tried. And that has to bring them some kind of peace in the midst of all of that. And I think that sometimes, people just look at the success rate, which is a great success rate, 55 to 68%. That's wonderful. But we know, a little over 30% will, or more, a little more will not be successful. But yet, I think there's got to be peace in that, knowing that they tried to save this child.
There is.
Otherwise,
And women have told us that time after time again how grateful they are just at the opportunity. Because APR is truly transformative.
Well, we are at break, and I want to let the audience know today we have the privilege of talking to Dr. George Delgado, who founded the Abortion Pill Reversal Network in 2012. We'll talk more about that in the second half of the show. But he's also an author and co-author of 3 articles in the peer-reviewed literature on mifepristone and APR. And he received his medical degree from the University of California and completed his residency at UCLA Santa Monica Medical Center. We're talking about his current book, Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice. So come back on the other side of the break as we continue to discuss this article or this book. You're listening to The Virtuous Life. I'm your host, Pat Odie Murray.
Experience the incredible story of a woman who Time magazine named the most influential Catholic woman in the United States. Rita Rizzo, the future Mother Angelica, grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Canton, Ohio during the Great Depression. Rita's father abandoned the family before she was 5 years old. Her early years of trial were compounded by a debilitating illness until she was healed by Jesus through a woman named Rhoda Wise. That healing set her life on a course that would ultimately change the world. Learn the amazing story of Rita Rizzo at the Mother Angelica Museum in her hometown of Canton, Ohio.
It's amazing how uplifting God's Word is. He reveals that life has a purpose, that our sufferings don't come to stay, they come to pass, that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, that His love defines us, not our flaws. St. Paul had an amazing attitude in prison. Want to know why? Because he preached those truths to himself all the time. And whenever self-defeating negative thoughts popped up, he'd choose to dwell on the Word of God instead. Listen, not every one of your thoughts gets to vote. Not every one of them matters. Not every one of them is valid, but God's Word always is. And He didn't reveal His Word to you so you'd wait for someone else to preach to you in hard times. He revealed His Word to you so you start preaching to yourself. You know whose job it is to remind you of the truth? Yours. If you're always looking to everyone else to do that job for you, you're going through life way too needy. Preach the truth to yourself. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com.
Welcome back to the Virtuous Life. I'm your host, Pat Odie Marie, and today, during this month where we focus on the preciousness of life, we have with us Dr. George Delgado. He is an MD, and he founded the Abortion Pill Reversal Network in 2012, and he has authored and co-authored 3 articles in the peer-reviewed literature on mifepristone and abortion pill reversal. We're talking about the current book that he wrote on abortion pill reversal, A Second Chance at Choice. Thanks so much for being with us today, Dr. Delgado.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to pick up because, and let people know, the first half of the show, certainly we talked about mifepristone and the abortion pill, chemical abortion, RU486. But I want to kind of lead into the idea that obviously when you have this done, there is a second pill. It's not just mifepristone that is given. However, people have to wait to take that. Women have to wait to take that. So there is kind of a window in between the first and the second pill where you have the ability to do this abortion pill reversal process. But can you talk a little bit about that second pill, what it does, and then what the window is for this progesterone treatment?
Sure. The second pill is called misoprostol. The brand name is Cytotec, and that medication has been around a long time, and it was previously mostly used for gastric ulcers, and then it started to be used for some women to induce labor. It so-called ripens the cervix for women who have to have labor induced. And also it can be used for women who've had pregnancy losses, if they've had miscarriages, but the baby's remains yet have not been expelled, that can be given to cause contractions to complete the miscarriage, or in the case of a stillbirth, to deliver the body of the baby that's passed away.
Okay.
Well, early on in the research of mifepristone, before it was even approved, they were noticing that the mifepristone, although it was quite effective at killing the preborn baby, that 20% up to 40% of the time the remains would not be expelled, that there would still be remains of the preborn baby inside the uterus. And so that, of course, would be a great risk to the mother. And so they added this second drug, which they knew was good at causing contractions of the uterus, to empty out the uterus, to sort of finish the job, if you will. And so that drug, misoprostol, we do not have an antidote for that drug like we do for the first drug, mifepristone. So APR occurs in the window between those two drugs. The woman has taken mifepristone, but has not yet taken misoprostol. Misoprostol is generally taken 24 to 48 hours after the mifepristone. So after the woman takes mifepristone, if she has a change of heart and wants that second chance at choice, then that's when we give progesterone. And we've had success up to 72 hours after the ingestion of the mifepristone. However, these days, most of the women get going on the progesterone less than 48 hours, and many at 24 or less or fewer hours. And so we think that's important. We think that getting the progesterone on board as soon as possible makes a difference. And so we're very happy that with the efficiency of the abortion pill reversal network, that women are getting their progesterone very early in the course to reverse their chemical abortions.
So, Doctor, I want to talk a little bit about, excuse me, this whole approval by the FDA, because I think a lot of what we're seeing in this field especially makes us question what kind of things are they looking at considering safety for women. So how did mifepristone, how did that get approved by the FDA?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. And in my book, Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice, I have a whole chapter on this, of how it got approved and why it got approved. And so the mifepristone and chemical abortion sort of has had a favored status both in Europe and in the U.S. Since its beginning. It was hailed as the, quote, holy grail of abortion, unquote, because it would allow women to supposedly have abortions in the privacy of their own homes and not depend on clinics and doctors. Well, even before it got here to the United States, in France, it was initially approved, but then the manufacturer, Roussel-Uclaf, which is why it was called RU46, Roussel-Uclaf RU.
Got it.
And the 486 was simply because that was the sequence of drugs in their portfolio. So pharmaceutical companies, when they develop new drugs, they don't give them names right away because only about 10% of them make it to market. So why waste that creative talent? They just give it a number. It was RU46, but it was such a notorious drug. We've all remembered that name.
Right.
But anyway, once it was approved of Mifegyne there in France, the French company Roussel-Uclaf wanted to take it off the market, and they did because they were very afraid of backlash from pro-life. They're having a lot of pro-life opposition there in France. Well, the French government forced the company to put it on the market again. So here's the government forcing a company to sell a product it did not want to sell. So that's what happened in France. Then in the U.S., this was during the Clinton administration, and the Clinton administration really pressured the manufacturer Roussel-Uclaf to donate the U.S. rights to mifepristone to the Population Council, which is a pro-abortion group, which then granted them to Danco Laboratories. So that was really strong-arming by the Clinton administration. Then once the rights were donated and it was available here in the U.S., the rails were greased and it was really pushed through to have it approved. And the approval process violated the law and violated FDA regulations. Because the Food and Drug Administration Act says that the Food and Drug Administration exists in order to make sure that food and drugs are safe, first of all, and in the case of drugs, are effective for what they're supposed to do. Now, the more recent regulations require that any new drug be subject to what's called a placebo-controlled trial. That means where we've talked about that before, where one group gets the active drug, one group only gets a sugar pill. Well, they didn't do that with mifepristone. And they also require a randomized trial where a computer decides what group a patient will go into. They didn't do that either. They just had women who came to an abortion center. This is called the SPITZ study, S-P-I-T-Z. It's in the New England Journal of Medicine, and I reference it in my book. Mm-hmm. And they just came to the abortion center, and they were offered a chemical abortion, and they just compared them historically to the success rates of surgical abortions. So they violated their two laws there. And by the way, they're very hypocritical in saying that we should have a randomized placebo-controlled trial for abortion pill reversal when they didn't need it, and they didn't require it, and they didn't do it. But that's the other point. Right. The other law or regulation that they violated was that they did not test the drug on pediatric patients, on girls younger than age 18. Mm-hmm. And the regulations state that you must do that if you're going to if the drug is possibly going to be used in the pediatric population. So they never did that. However, millions probably of girls under the age of 18 have received mifepristone. Oh, yeah. So we don't really know how it would affect their health, the girls' health who are getting it. And so, but this was all because of the high priority of getting the chemical abortion drug on the market, the preferred status of abortion in mainstream medicine, in the FDA, in our government, in our society. It has a privileged place, unfortunately. And that's what led to these huge violations in approving it in the United States.
So, Doctor, why do you think chemical abortions is kind of, why are we moving more toward that and away from surgical abortions? Is it people just want it in the privacy of their home? Is there more money for like Planned Parenthood who gives out these pills? What's the story, do you think, or what are some of the things moving us in that direction?
I think it's multifactorial. I think it's part of this ideologic where these really hardcore abortion activists don't want to be dependent on any doctors or clinics for their abortions. There's this whole movement called, quote, self-managed abortions. So that's part of it. The other part of it is more pragmatic on the part of big abortion, and that is that the abortionists are aging, and a lot of these abortionist doctors are retiring. There's not a huge number of young doctors who want to do abortions because they have an innate sense that it's the dirty underbelly of medicine. They don't want to get involved with that. And in fact, there's been a big push by the abortion supporters to actually start a new subspecialty in OBGYN called complex family planning. And what complex family planning really is training doctors to do abortions, and especially late-term abortions.
Really?
So that's how they've responded, because of the lack of abortionists. You've all heard stories of abortionists flying from town to town doing the circuit in order to do abortions. So there's a pragmatic part there. There's also the monetary part. I don't have any figures, and the figures would be hard to come by. But to me, it has to be less overhead to give out these pills in a clinic than to have an abortionist, staffing it. You're going to have less liability insurance because you don't have to have as many people under a liability policy. You don't have to have all the surgical suites where they do the abortions. You don't have to have all the supplies, all the equipment. You don't even need so many rooms. So it just, as an economic model for Planned Parenthood and the other components of big abortion, it really is, I think, financially beneficial. And then you have the financial incentive for these companies who are now roaming in what I call the wild, wild west, the unregulated territory of chemical abortion since the Biden administration removed all the restrictions, where you have these mail order abortion, where you have telehealth abortion. And so huge profit there. It's so easy to get these abortion pills online. Several months ago, I went online to a website, and after 6 clicks, it was asking me for my credit card information so that they could send the abortion pills to my doorstep. So it's very, very easy. It's very, very profitable. We're having companies from India, Pakistan, who knows where, sending these to the United States. And so it's become a cash cow for them, just as it was and is a cash cow for Planned Parenthood.
So, Doctor, is that where the Shield laws come in? Because so like states that say we don't want this mail order kind of stuff going on, or their laws have been making abortion more difficult. Obviously, they're moving toward a more pro-life stance. Do they still? How can they keep those pills out? How's that Shield law? What is that? How does that figure into this?
So it is very difficult for pro-life states to keep things from coming through the mail. That's probably going to be under the jurisdiction of the federal government. The federal government's really going to have to get on this because they're crossing interstate lines. That becomes a federal offense if it's illegal in one state. But there are some states like Texas who are really stepping up to the task and doing a great job with the enforcement. Well, the Shield laws are passed by the pro-abortion states in order to, quote, shield their abortion pill suppliers from being prosecuted by the pro-life states. And so that's a great disservice. You have states like California, New York, Illinois, who are passing these Shield laws to protect these predators, essentially, who are preying on women in other states and sending them chemical abortion drugs through the mail. And of course, the women who are getting the abortion pills in this fashion are putting themselves at great risk. Yeah. They generally are not getting ultrasounds, so they may have misstated their pregnancies and may be taking these drugs inappropriately. We know that 1% to 2% of all pregnancies in the U.S. are ectopic pregnancies. These women will have no warning that they have ectopic pregnancies. So imagine a woman who gets these drugs through the mail, has an ectopic pregnancy, doesn't know it. She takes the pills. She starts to bleed. She's heard or at least read somewhere that she might bleed with the chemical abortion process. So she feels that it's just par for the course. She's in her bathroom. Her fallopian tube ruptures because the ectopic pregnancy has ruptured it. She starts to bleed more heavily, still discounts it. And then before she knows it, she passes out and she bleeds out on her bathroom floor, never calling 911. So she's another sacrifice at the altar of choice. So we're going to be seeing more and more cases like this. Not only that, but we know that about 15% of women in the U.S. are Rh positive, Rh negative in their blood type.
Right.
Now, an Rh negative mother in a normal pregnancy, and even before when more abortions were done in clinics, would get checked for that. And if she were Rh negative, she'd get a special shot to protect her immune system in case the preborn baby had Rh positive blood. And we know that during abortions, during miscarriages, even during pregnancies, and at deliveries, there's mixing of the blood. We know that happens. That's irrefutable. Sure. And if a mother is Rh negative and is exposed to a preborn baby's blood that's Rh positive, and she hasn't gotten that special shot called RhoGAM, then her immune system may be activated to attack the Rh positive blood. Now, for that, abortion, of course, is not going to make a difference. However, we know that immune systems have the memories of elephants. So then in future wanted pregnancies with Rh positive babies, when there is mixing, the immune system will launch an attack and attack that baby, causing the preborn baby to have congestive heart failure and oftentimes lead to stillbirth. And it's a curse that will go on after pregnancy, after pregnancy, after pregnancy. It will never let up because the immune system has learned that lesson and will not stop. So those are sort of the great medical dangers. And then there are the social dangers. This has become the tool of sex traffickers, rapists, and child molesters. About 4 months ago, there was a case in Illinois where a man was convicted for giving his pregnant girlfriend the abortion drug surreptitiously. And she aborted and found out what happened. And fortunately, he was put in jail. But how many hundreds or maybe thousands of other men have done that and have not gotten caught, have not been detected? So this is truly, supposedly abortion empowers women. No, this is putting women's lives at risk, at great risk, socially and medically.
Doctor, before we've got about a little over 10 minutes, and there are two things. I definitely want to talk about your website, but before we launch into that, you make a statement which I think is really important for us, and you talk about it in the book. You say the lines are being blurred between abortion pills and contraception. I think that's an important thing because contraception just seems so much a part of our society. A lot of women don't even think twice about it. So can you explain this to us?
Sure. So the lines definitely are being blurred in several respects. First, even before the advent of the abortion pill, we now have good evidence that the low-dose oral contraceptives may lead to early chemical abortions. And women, unbeknownst to the woman, not knowing even that she has conceived. So that's the first thing. But also with the terminology, and you see a change in terminology on the abortion side where they're wanting to use, instead of the term contraceptive, more contragestational, which implies that you're acting a little later on. And the other change in terminology happened many years ago now, and this was ACOG itself, which unilaterally changed the definition of the beginning of pregnancy, which everyone used to agree was at fertilization, when the sperm and the egg unite. That's when pregnancy starts. They changed it to say that pregnancy starts at implantation, and implantation is when the preborn embryo is now 5 to 7 days old. So the reason they moved that line is so that any contraceptives that would have an effect on implantation would not be considered abortifacient, but instead would be considered as contraceptive because, quote, the pregnancy hasn't really started yet.
Got it.
But now the lines are further being blurred because there are now studies that they've done, and this study was done, I believe, in the Eastern European country of Moldova, where they went to this third world Eastern European country, unfortunately, and have these women take mifepristone monthly. And they found that taking it monthly, that they had no recorded pregnancies. So what's happening here? Is it being used? Is it contraceptive or is it abortifacient? Maybe it's both. It's probably both. But so they're taking this abortion-causing drug regularly, and they're not having any perceived pregnancy. So you see the lines are being blurred there. There are also people who are advocating that you take the mifepristone just as a sort of a quote backup contraception, the way these quote plan Bs are being used. So you can see it's all being blurred. They've tried to change the terminology so that they don't get stuck on the wrong side of the line in case abortion is made illegal universally. And it's very, very, very worrisome. And it's important to remember the words of St. Pope John Paul II, who said that contraception and abortion are fruits of the same tree. They truly are. And this shows that on a scientific and medical level, they are too.
Well, as we get moving toward the end of the show here, one of the things that really hit me as I read this book is these women who, after they take the first pill and they just think, I want to try to save this child. So many of them call Planned Parenthood back or wherever they got the abortion pill because that's all they have. They believe they have access to. And of course, they're going to tell them, no, you got to take the second pill. The baby will be deformed. They'll tell them all this stuff to kind of push them into taking the second pill. They don't know what's out there. And that's why your website is so important. Can you tell us about this?
Sure. So 2 websites to tell you about. The first is stenoinstitute.org, and that's the website for the nonprofit I founded called Steno Institute, named after Blessed Nicholas Steno. And that's to increase awareness, education, and research around abortion pill reversal. The other one is abortionpillreversal.com, and this is the website when women have taken it, or also just people who want information, have taken mifepristone and changed their minds. They go to this website. The information on that website on the chemical abortion process itself is actually much better than what I've seen on Planned Parenthood's website, more complete, more thorough, less biased. And then there's, of course, great information there on the abortion pill reversal process. And then if the woman reads that and wants to continue, there's a chat feature on the website where she can chat with the person there, and then she can, if she still wants to continue, then she actually has a phone call with a hotline nurse who's an RN who's trained to go over the abortion pill reversal protocol. And then finally, if the woman wants to have the abortion pill reversal, she's connected with a clinic or a doctor in her area who is competent and compassionate and caring and willing to help her.
So what's your network like, Dr. Delgado? I mean, because obviously you field calls from all over the United States, maybe even the world, I don't know. But what's your network like? Do you have enough providers close enough that women don't have to drive for hours to get this done?
Yes, so we have thousands of doctors and clinics in the network, and it is an international network, and it is now run by Heartbeat International. In 2018, I turned it over to them because I knew I was getting so big. I needed an institution with great depth and integrity, and they were the right choice. So in the United States, we feel, and our experience has borne out, that women are no more than an hour's drive from an abortion pill reversal practitioner in probably 95 to 98% of the country. So we have the country very well covered. Of course, we're always looking for good pro-life doctors who want to be part of the network, and they can inquire about that on the website. But so we're doing very well there. We do get the network does get calls from all over the world, but there are also regional networks. So there's APR in Australia, Mifepristone Reversal Network Australia. There's Dr. Dermot Kearney and his colleagues in the UK and Ireland who have their own network. Switzerland has its own network. Canada has abortionpillreversal.ca. And there's a group in Mexico, also Dr. Miguel Salazar and his group have their own network in Mexico. So we're very happy that it spread some of it. We've helped foster some of these networks. And some of them have just done it on their own. Dr. Alexei Fokin in Russia, I got an email from him several years ago saying, Dr. Delgado, I saw your website and I translated it into Russian. I've been offering abortion pill reversal, and the women here are very happy with the results we're getting. So he's been doing great work there. He gets calls from Russia and some of the surrounding countries around there.
Is there anything in particular you're looking for in these practitioners? They have to be trained in a special way, just in case somebody's listening today and is interested. Yeah.
So they should be have experience in training and treating women in early pregnancy. It doesn't have to be throughout the whole pregnancy. Mm-hmm. So treating women particularly in situations called threatened miscarriage. And if they can do that, then they can do abortion pill reversal. the doctors in our network are usually OBGYNs and family physicians. There are also some internists and pediatricians and some other specialties. Dr. Carney himself in the UK, he's actually a cardiologist by training, but he saw a need and he trained himself and has become an expert in this. So it's doctors who have willingness and competency in treating women in the first trimester of their pregnancies.
Oh, that's
we,
amazing.
of course, can give them lots of training and education on it, too, on how to use the progesterone in this fashion.
So can you give the websites one more time, Doctor, just because I know this is so important for women who are, and for family members who might, a woman comes to them and says, I've already taken the first pill, I don't know what to do. Give them again for us.
Sure. So stenoinstitute.org, STENO institute.org. That's our nonprofit to increase awareness, education, and research around abortion pill reversal. By the way, you can also, there's a click there to get, if you want to buy the book. The book can also be gotten from Ignatius.com and Amazon. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Abortion Pill Reversal Network itself. That's abortionpillreversal.com.
Wonderful. And I finished I read the whole book. It is an amazing book. I would definitely recommend it to people, just because I think, like you said, this is the next frontier because chemical abortions have just been increasing. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule, Doctor, to be with us. Our guest today
It's been a pleasure being with you.
Dr. George Delgado founded the Abortion Pill Reversal Network in 2012, author of and co-author of 3 articles in the peer-reviewed literature on mifepristone and abortion pill reversal. He received his medical degree from the University of California, completed his residency at UCLA Santa Monica Medical Center. The book we have been talking about today that he is the author of is Abortion Pill Reversal, a second chance at choice. I'll spit it out here. And as he said earlier, it is, you can get it from Ignatius Press or also from Amazon. Highly recommended. So I wish all of you a blessed and life-filled week ahead. Thanks for listening to The Virtuous Life. I'm your host, Pat Odie Murray.